Hello everyone. Today I'd like to talk about manipulation and control. The manipulation and control that the powers that be, the elite, are shoving down our throat for the last year and a half. Now, as a hypnotist, I think I have a little bit of a unique take on this because I deal with the subconscious each and every day. And I don't think people realize what a large part the subconscious plays in our daily life. But you know who does. The powers that be and the elite. They know that they can control a populace through the subconscious. And that's what this video is going to be about today. How a person can be manipulated through their subconscious easily and quickly. And I think it's going to shock a lot of people. Now, this video is not going to be me just blathering on about the subconscious the whole time being boring. I have a lot of little video clips and little experiments throughout this video that are entertaining, informative, but at the end a little disturbing. So make sure you watch this video all the way to the end because those video clips are dispersed throughout the entire video. But moving forward, before we get into the interesting stuff, I need you to understand one important fact about the subconscious. And that is the subconscious has a completely different language and rule system than our conscious mind. It has a completely different language. And the language of the subconscious, and this is key, is visualizations, emotions, and repetition. Those are three key components of the language of the subconscious. And we've been seeing this play out in society for the last year and a half in a way that I don't think we've ever seen before. So let's rewind. Let's rewind to about a year and a half ago when this sickness came onto the scene, right? Everybody's a little nervous at first, but then it started crossing the globe, right? And as soon as it hit our own countries, we began to feel fear. What if it's as bad as they say? What if I get sick and die? What if my family gets sick and die? Oh my God, what if grandma dies, right? So they started the fear. Now that's one key component of the subconscious, and fear is a powerful emotion. It's probably one of the most powerful emotions that we have that can induce change. But they couldn't stop there. No, they couldn't stop there. And this is where it became really concerning to me and many others, is when the mask mandates first started showing on the scene. The mask mandates took it to another level. So you had one component of the language of the subconscious with fear. The second component they unleashed on all of us was the visual component. And that was with the masks. That's where it really began. And a lot of us seen it. We knew that it was never going to end with the masks. You could just feel it in your bones that this was not, it was never going to end with the masks. And why the masks are so important with this subconscious and what I'm talking about here is because of the visual component. Just think about it. For this last year and a half, can you go to any store, any business, any school, your job, anywhere you go, what's on the front door? A sign. Originally it was, no mask, no service, no mask, no entry. Now they just encourage mask wearing, but it's every day. Every door you go through, there's these damn signs saying wear your mask, right? So it's visual. But then you walk into the store, especially last year, and everyone was wearing masks. Well, it doesn't get more visual than that, right? It's so out of the ordinary that your subconscious will take notice of that. And whether you're for the masks or against the masks, there's an emotional component to that as well. So now you have two of the key components, right? You have the visualization, you have the emotion, but what else do you have? You have the repetition. Because every time you go through that door, every time you go to work, every time you go to school, you're seeing the masks, you're seeing the signs. So that's three of the key components for your subconscious to take this in, to really start understanding what's going on. And when this started happening, for many of us, it was a warning sign, right? The alarm bells were going off. This was never going to end with the mask. We knew it was going to go further. So a lot of people would just say, well, it's just a mask. It's just a little uncomfortable. It's no different than wearing a seatbelt. It's no different than wearing, no shoes, no shirt, no service, right? It's no different than that. It's no different than not being able to drive drunk. No, it's completely different because we could see the control taking place on a mass scale that we've never seen before, okay? We knew that it was never going to end with the masks, and look where we are now a year and a half later, right? Now it's vaccine passports, it's show your papers, right? It was never going to end with the masks, and that's why it was so concerning a year and a half ago when everyone started putting on these muzzles. So now the powers that be, they knew they couldn't stop there, right? They had to have more control. So how do you do that? Well, you have all that in place already. Now you have to go into the social conformity. You have to make people feel almost like an outcast, that they have to fit in with the group, right? And that's going to lead us to this little video clip I'm going to show you now of how easy it is to get somebody to change the way they perceive things how easy it is to get a person to go along with the group, even if it sounds ridiculous, even if you know it's wrong. How easy it is to get someone to go along with the group through social pressure and coercion. All right, enjoy this.
There's power in numbers. We set up a hidden camera experiment to see if this woman would stand up at the sound of this tone, simply because everyone else is. You might be thinking you'd never go along with this. Or would you? After just 3 beeps, and without knowing why she's doing it, this woman is now conforming perfectly to the group. But what happens if we take the group away?
Elaine, please.
Okay, now she's alone. The crowd is gone and nobody is watching her, except our hidden cameras. What do you think she'll do? She's now conforming to the rules of the group without them even being there. Now, watch what happens when we introduce another outsider who doesn't know the rules.
Have a seat and they'll be out in just a couple minutes. Great, thanks so much.
Everybody was doing it, so I thought I was supposed to.
Think she'll teach the new guy what to do? We kept the cameras rolling as more unsuspecting patients arrived. And slowly but surely, what began as a random rule for this woman has now become the social norm for everyone in this waiting room.
Now that video is sort of entertaining, right? But it should be also concerning and a little scary, because just see how easy it was through social conformity to change that girl's behavior, to get her to go along with the group. Nobody wants to feel like they're the odd man out, right? Everybody wants to fit in. So you tend to do things that maybe you don't think are right. You start doing things that don't even make sense because you just don't want to stand out. That's social conformity. And what was really interesting about that video is after everyone left and got called into the doctor, that girl continued with the beeps and standing up and sitting down. And the new people that came in, look what they did. They started doing it as well. So even one person can start informing and changing the behavior of a group. So we have to be really careful of that when we're moved through society, when we listen to mainstream media and we see what's going on in the world today. Now this next video I want to share with you is similar to the last one. Just another way of showing you how easy it is to manipulate and get people to go along with the group through this social conformity. Now this experiment that you're going to see here in a minute was first conducted in the 1950s by a psychologist called Solomon Asch. And it's called the Asch line test. And in this test, a person answers some questions. Now, they begin to answer the questions in a way they know is wrong because of social conformity. They don't want to stand out from the group, right? So again, this video that you're going to see is very interesting, but again, should be scary and very disturbing. And after this video, we're going to go into even more disturbing things and how far this can go. So make sure you stick around for that.
It examines behavior under the pressure of social forces, as the experiment of Solomon Asch reveals.
The experiment you'll be taking part in today involves the perception of lengths of lines. As you can see here, I have a number of cards, and on each card there are several lines. Your task is a very simple one. You're to look at the line on the left and determine which of the 3 lines on the right is equal to it in length. All right, we'll proceed in this order. You'll give your answer.
Only one of the people in the group is a real subject, the fifth person with the white t-shirt. The others are confederates of the experimenter and have been told to give wrong answers on some of the trials. The experiment begins uneventfully as subjects give their judgments.
2. 2. 2.
2.
2. 3. 3. 3.
3.
But on the third trial, something happens.
2. 2.
2.
2.
2.
The subject denies the evidence of his own eyes and yields to group influence.
1.
Ash found subjects went along with the group on 37% of the critical trials. But he found through interviews that they went along with the group for different reasons.
1.
1.
They must be right. There are 4 of them and 1 of me.
1.
This subject's yielding is based on a distortion of his judgment. He genuinely believes that the group is correct.
1. 1.
1.
2. 1. 2. 2. 2.
I know they're wrong, but why should I make waves?
2.
In this case, the subject knows he is right, but goes along to avoid the discomfort of disagreeing with the group. Here, the distortion is at the level of his response.
2. 2. 2. 2.
In the previous experiment, the naive subject stood alone against the group. In this variation, Ash gave the naive subject a partner, here seated in the third position, who also gives the correct response.
1. 1. 2.
1.
2.
With a partner, yielding drops to only 5% of the critical trials compared to 37% without a partner. Although subjects report warmth and good feeling toward the partner, they typically deny that he played a role in their own independence. The partnership variation shows that much of the power of the group came not merely from its numbers, but from the unanimity of its opposition. When that unanimity is punctured, the group's power is greatly reduced. Sometimes we go along with the group because what they say convinces us they are right. This is called informational conformity. But sometimes we conform because we are apprehensive that the group will disapprove if we are deviant. This is called normative conformity. The strength of the normative factor is shown in another variation carried out by Ash. In this variation, the subject is told that because he had arrived late, he would have to write his answers. Subjects in this private response experiment are exposed to the same amount of misleading information as other subjects, but they are immune from any possible criticism by the group.
1.
1.
1.
And this enormously reduces the pressure to conform. Conformity drops by 2/3. Ash's experiment is a classic. It reveals how people will deny what they see and submit to group pressure. It allows us not only to observe conformity, but to study the conditions that increase or reduce its occurrence.
Now, those two videos that I just shared with you are entertaining on one hand, but they're also very disturbing and scary on another. And it should scare you, because where we're headed as a society is very scary. And it reminds me of this quote by Ralph Waldo Emerson. And it says, "For nonconformity, the world whips you with displeasure." So let me repeat that. For nonconformity, the world whips you with displeasure. And we're seeing that play out on the mainstream media and the news almost daily, every night. You turn on CNN, you turn on MSNBC, what do? They're pumping fear, but now they're pumping this new thing. They're pumping shame, right? They want to shame you into submission, shun you into submission.
I think we have to stop coddling people when it comes to this and the vaccine, saying, oh, you can't shame them. You can't call them stupid. You can't call them silly. Yes, they are. The people who aided and abetted Trump are stupid because they believed his big lie. The people who are not getting vaccines, who are believing the lies on the internet instead of science, it's time to start shaming them. What else? Or leave them behind.
Dr. Fauci said that if hospitals get any more overcrowded, they're going to have to make some very tough choices about who gets an ICU bed. That choice doesn't seem so tough to me. Vaccinated person having a heart attack, yes, come right on in. We'll take care of you. Unvaccinated guy who gobbled horse goo, rest in peace, Wheezy.
To get vaccinated, to wear masks, to do social distancing, washing your hands all the time, and not just to think about, well, my freedom is being kind of disturbed here. No, screw your freedom.
When are we going to stop putting up with the idiots in this country and just say, it's mandatory to get vaccinated? Them, their freedom. I want my freedom to live.
This shunning and shaming of specific people within our population should disturb you to your core. But they're not going to stop there. Oh no, they're not going to stop there. They're going to ramp it up to the next level. You're the reason that people are dying. You're the reason that our world is not going back to normal. You're the reason that my grandma died. This is a pandemic of the unvaccinated.
A pandemic of the unvaccinated.
We're still in a pandemic of the unvaccinated.
There is a clear message that is coming through. This is becoming a pandemic of the unvaccinated.
The latest COVID-19 outbreak in the U.S. is becoming a pandemic of the unvaccinated.
The reason we're here is because people have not gotten vaccinated, 80 million of them.
Cases are still rising, especially among the unvaccinated.
So this is clearly a pandemic of the unvaccinated.
They're killing people. I mean, look, the only pandemic we have is among the unvaccinated.
So now that we have this group of people that we can blame the problems of the world on, they're the reason our world's not going back to normal. As a society, what are we going to do to put them in their place? How far as a society are we going to be willing to go? And there's an answer to that. In the 1960s, there was an experiment called the Milgram Obedience Experiment. And it answers just those types of questions. How far is a person willing to go? It answers the question of how the Nazis got people to go along with the Holocaust. Atrocities that alone, those people would have never committed. In the Nuremberg trials, they asked these Nazis, why did they do the things they did? How could they do that? And so many of them answered, I was just following orders. It's obedience. And that's what the powers that be, the elite, want. They want social conformity and obedience. Now, I'm going to share that video with you now of this experiment. And like I've said earlier in the video, this should disturb you right to your core. It really should.
A decade earlier, psychologist Stanley Milgram had also looked at how we respond to authority. In order to understand how people were induced to obey unjust regimes and participate in atrocities such as the Holocaust, he set up an experiment. Volunteers were told they were taking part in scientific research to improve memory.
Would you open those and tell me which of you is which, please? Teacher. Learn.
Separated by a screen, the teacher would ask the learner questions in a word game and administer an electric shock when the answer was incorrect. He was told to increase the voltage with each wrong answer.
Cloud. Horse. Rock. House. Answer. Wrong. 150 volts. Answer. Horse.
Oh. Experiment. That's all. Get me out of here. Get me out of here, please.
Continue, please. Go right on.
I refuse to go on. Let me out.
You refuse to go on? The experiment requires you continue, teacher. Please continue.
Participants didn't know that the learner was really an actor and the so-called shocks harmless.
You're going to get a shock. 180 volts.
I can't stand the pain. Let me out of here.
Can't stand it. I'm not going to kill that man, eh? I mean, who's going to take the responsibility if anything happens to that gentleman? I'm responsible for anything that happens here. Continue, please. All right, next one. Slow. Walk, dance, truck, music.
Two-thirds of volunteers were prepared to administer a potentially fatal electric shock when encouraged to do so by what they perceived as a legitimate authority figure. In this case, a man in a white coat.
375 volts. I think something's happened to that fellow in there. I don't get no answer. He was hollering for less voltage. Can't you check in and see if he's all right, please?
Milgram's findings horrified America. They showed that decent American citizens were as capable of committing acts against their conscience as the Germans had been under the Nazis.
So throughout this video, I've been giving you examples of how easy it is to control and manipulate people into doing things that they normally wouldn't do. And it's a very scary place to be, and that's where we're headed as a society. It's a very scary place, and we need to wake up. All right? And I want you to remember right at the beginning of this video when I said that the subconscious has a language all of its own, right? It's visualizations, it's emotions, and repetition. And I plead with you, when you go throughout your daily life, I want you to pay attention to when this is happening. When you walk into that store and there's a sign on the door saying, no mask, no service, know that that's manipulation. When you go into that store and everyone's wearing that mask, know that that's the result of that manipulation. If you have a job that's trying to force you for the jab, or a school that's trying to force a jab on you, know that that's coercion and manipulation. And I ask you, and I plead with you, if you have a belief that this jab isn't safe, I don't want to take it, then don't. All right? Don't cave to societal pressures because it feels a little uncomfortable to go against the grain. Don't cave because you don't want to look bad in front of your coworkers or your school members, or oh, I don't want my supervisor to be mad at me. Who cares about your supervisor? This is your core belief. You hold on to it. It's time to draw a line in the sand and not step over it. Because when we step over that line in the sand, you're giving up your beliefs, right? You're going to begin to give up who you truly are. And you're going to live a life of obedience and control. Is that the life you want? It's not the life I want. I don't want to be living in a world of obedience and control. It's time to wake up.
Confrontation with a woman caught without a mask. Video shows an officer holding the woman by the throat after she resisted arrest.
Get off of me!
Grabbed around the neck by police, a woman who wasn't wearing a mask.
Choking me!
The forceful manoeuvre during a scuffle yesterday in Collingwood as her boyfriend watched.
It's a man on a girl and you choked her. For what? For a mask? For not having a mask? Look how pathetic you are.
This is the woman who was arrested. Police now agree she has a medical exemption.
Off her! Get off her! She's got an excuse for not wearing a mask, mate. She's got a note from the doctor.
Oh, get off of me! You're not arresting me for nothing! I am doing nothing wrong!
This is over a mask.
Oh my God, dude, you're not arresting me for not doing nothing!
Tase somebody over a mask. Tasing this lady over not wearing a damn mask.
It's time for me to go back to Florida.
Arresting her for not wearing a mask.